He is shining bright, and he joins us this morning on MLB Central. Casey, good morning to you. We're fans. We're thrilled for you. Honestly, there was snow your last start. Were you just so happy to be healthy and dominating, or were you like, what the heck is going on? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to pitch back in Comerica Park, even if it is snowing and sunny, rainy, whatever. It felt like we had all season. So it was a weird start, but glad to get through it and glad we got the win.
Dero, forgive me if I just stole your question here, but Dero said something yesterday, Casey, that stuck with me when I found out you were going to be on the show. Last year, during the Tigers' postseason run, it was an incredible run for the team, but there were times when they decided to go with an opener, and you were seemingly, or in theory, available. I'm wondering how that sat with you, and what, if any, kind of motivation did that give you going into the offseason preparing for 2025?
Yeah, I mean, we made a wonderful run, and we were doing some unorthodox things to get it done. And so, you can't knock the winning, and you can't knock the strategy from our team, but obviously it didn't feel good not being called upon to start the game or even be a part of our divisional series roster. But I'm not knocking the decision there. It's just I wasn't performing well. So going into the offseason, that was plenty of motivation on top of some other things to go get a lot better and just be somebody that AJ can call upon to start a game and in a big moment or even in the playoffs. And that fueled a lot of my offseason work, and we're off to a good start here.
Hey, Case, you were dominant the other day against the Yankees. I mean, the splitter was nasty. Eric Nays is our researcher to the stars in the back, and we were trying to figure out how many breaking balls you had. It looked like you were throwing like a little backdoor, what appeared to be like a little backdoor cutter. Can you take us through your array of breaking pitches?
Yeah, so I throw 3 at the moment. I'm throwing like a short little gyro slider, and then I throw like a little depthier slider, and I throw one that has a little bit more horizontal break. Not enough for me to call it a sweeper, but it's gonna go to the left a little bit. So the game plan against the Yankees is pretty much just to stay away from them, and I feel good flipping in sliders for strikes early and counts to guys, and we were able to kind of still strike one backdoor to a lot of guys, set up some fastballs and splits later in the count.
So, Casey, we're looking at that temperature reading at 41 during the daytime. All the games were moved up. How much time did you get in advance for that? And were you okay with that kind of daytime piece because it was going to be a little bit warmer for you?
Yeah, I was okay with it. AJ approached us about it, Tarek and Jack and myself, about potentially moving the games, and we were all on board. It's the best weather we can get. We'll pitch in. It ended up snowing and flurrying a little bit, and it's still quite cold, but it's better than 6:40 first pitch and really low temperatures, so we were all on board with it.
It needs a dome, right?
That's his favorite thing, Casey.
It's time for a roof,
He
right,
just
Casey?
put a roof on it.
Yeah. At this moment, I agree with you, but then when it gets late July and it's beautiful weather here in Detroit, I'm not wanting a dome then. Yeah.
Casey, after your start against the Yankees, I heard you were saying you were trying to keep Judge on the ground and then execute to Cody. How much of your game plan is what you playing to your strengths, and then as opposed to their lineup and what they do well?
Yeah, most of it's going to be to my strength. But like I said, the game plan to them was kind of keep the ball away, which I'm comfortable in doing that anyways. But then there's some outlier players that you just have to respect, like Judge. So you're going to have to do some uncomfortable things if you want to get really quality players out. And so it just kind of depends on how you approach certain guys and certain teams. But for the most part, I'm just going to do my thing, and I feel pretty confident in that.
I mean, you've been there for a while now, and after last year's run, the vibe in that locker room and with AJ Hinch, you guys got to be getting to the yard a half hour earlier than you used to, the way you guys are coming together.
Yeah, we love being here.
Yeah.
We have a great group. It's just interesting. We've played together for a while, and we're still pretty young, and it's just like it's a group that just really loves each other. And there's not a day that I didn't want to come to the yard and hang out with these guys, and I think that translates to playing on the field. And we're kind of just like next man up, pass the baton, and keep rolling. So we really believe in each other.
Casey, we just saw the news about Jake Rogers and AJ Hinch saying he's going to go on the IL and it might not be a very short stint. Your reaction, and just describe to us, if you would, what he means to the pitching staff.
Yeah, our pitching staff is hurting right now. Getting that news. Jake is one of the best in the game behind the dish. He's a glue guy in our clubhouse, which he'll continue to be that. But not having him back there calling our game and stealing strikes for us is going to be an adjustment, but we feel really good about Dylan Dingler and Nito. Ding is off to a great start offensively, and we love his preparation and his arm and the things he can do behind the plate to kind of step in. And Nito's a veteran presence that's going to step in and be able to handle this pitching staff really well as well. But Jake not being a part of the team, for a little while is really going to hurt us. But like I said, next man up mentality on this team.
What does he have for breakfast?
Ask him.
What do you have for breakfast this morning?
3 eggs over medium, bacon, hash brown.
Over medium?
Little,
That's why you buy eggs.
So
Yeah.
a little run, huh? A little run.
Yes.
yeah, a little, not too much, but a little. Yeah.
They're judging
And then
you,
like
Casey. They hate that.
I mean, it's okay.
No?
Look, hey, if you throw like he throws, he can have his eggs however the hell he wants them. Hey, real quick, Casey, before we get you out of here, we talked about you were a high draft pick. But when you look at the draft class here that you were a part of, I mean, there's some really good names on here, big-time names, including Kyler Murray, who's now, of course, with the Arizona Cardinals. What do you recall about your draft class and draft day and that space and time for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of good players in that group. You know, I remember getting drafted, and we went to like an after party, and then I see Kyler Murray get drafted, and it was just like, oh my gosh, you know, this is pretty crazy. But I think he's made the right decision playing football. He's had a pretty good career, and he's made a little bit of money, so I think he's doing all right.
Well, Casey, congratulations.
I don't know enough about him. Give me a hidden talent. What do you got?
I think he's pretty stock. I can tell he's awesome.
Nothing.
Yeah. I'm a stock player here. Not much going on.
Yeah, I mean,
What do you do on an off
so.
day? You fisher, hunter, golfer?
No, I just like to walk around, try really good food. I like to read a little bit.
Really? What are we reading right now? What's the book?
I actually just bought Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, so I'm going to dig into that here tomorrow on the off day. So, yeah. Try to read some of the classics that I didn't read when I was young. So.
I love that.
I'm going to go.
Over medium for the win. Dunk your toast in it.
Casey.
And away we go.
We had Spencer Schwellenbach on. He's playing with Pokemon cards. And
He's not playing with them. He's collecting them, to be fair. Casey, we appreciate the time. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy Great Expectations, and good luck on your term paper.
All right, thanks.
Good morning to you, JP. Last time Taiwan was on the mound, it was 6 innings, 0 runs, and a thought was this is a building block. What can you expect for tonight? Good morning.
A building block indeed. And yes, good morning, Lauren. Taijuan Walker having perhaps his best start for the Phillies in about 2 years in his last outing against the Colorado Rockies. And Taijuan acknowledged, yes, he's heard boos in the last couple years from the fans in Philly as he's struggled to live up to that contract that he signed. But you saw it against the Rockies that he has that potential still to do that. And afterward, he spoke about what it meant to him to have that performance with his mother, Nelly Garcia, in the stand.
Yeah, you know, and it's part of the game for me, but my mom was here today, and I know she loved that, made her feel good, so as long as she's happy, so, yeah.
When was the last time she was at a game?
She was here, when was she here? Last year, maybe sometime in playoffs. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Have you got the chance to talk to her yet?
I have, yeah. She texts me a billion times, yeah. She's super proud, super happy. She sits up there crying the whole time, so, yeah.
Lauren, no matter how old we are, Mom is still the number one fan. And I love Taijuan sharing that about how proud she was of him for all that he's battled and gone through as a member of the Phillies. Here is the way the Phillies rotation looks right now. You'll notice in the bottom, Ranger Suarez could potentially be back in the rotation before the end of April. So we'll see what that means for Taijuan's role going forward. What we know is that tonight he is on the mound against the Braves, and certainly deservedly so based on how he's performed so far this season.
I'm listening to you, JP, thinking, isn't it the beauty of the game we love? For us, it's just a Wednesday night regular season game. For Taijuan Walker, for Grant Holmes, it means more. Grant's been working towards this.
He has, Lauren, and he had a 10-year odyssey in the minor leagues before he made his major league debut a year ago. And Mark Bowman wrote a great story about Grant at MLB.com when he made his first opening day roster this year and said that before he arrived to the major leagues a year ago, he was known mostly as a non-roster invitee who had been a first-round pick of the Dodgers 10 years prior and someone who looks a little bit like Kenny Powers, as Mark had said. But then he comes in and saves the Braves in the final game of the regular season last year. Remember, this was after Chris Sale was scratched from that outing, and here comes Grant Holmes on 0 days of rest. Lauren, he had pitched the previous day in relief in another game the Braves had to win against the Royals, then came out there, took the ball, 4 scoreless innings, helps the Braves get to the postseason. So certainly after a come-from-behind win for the Braves last night at a time when they need a win, Grant Holmes back on the mound this evening.
That is our MLB Network Showcase game tonight. We had the Braves and the Phillies last night on TBS, and I was with Pedro Martinez, one of the Dominican Republic's sons, and he was, JP, in mourning over the loss of so many in the nightclub tragedy. We were talking about Octavio Dotel, and he was saying how he was larger than life, a tragedy for all involved.
Yes, Lauren, it is. And the sports and certainly the Dominican Republic are in mourning today after the Jet Set nightclub tragedy 2 nights ago. Right now, according to the Associated Press, Lauren, the death toll is now at 113 people who were lost. And Commissioner Rob Manfred released a statement yesterday on behalf of Major League Baseball, quote, Major League Baseball is deeply saddened by the passings of Octavio Dotel, Tony Blanco, Nelsie Cruz, and all the victims of last night's tragedy in Santo Domingo. We send our heartfelt condolences to the families and friends of all those who have been affected and to our colleague Nelson and his entire family. The connection between baseball and the Dominican Republic runs deep, and we are thinking of all the Dominican Republic players and fans across the game today. You see the mention there of Nelsie Cruz. She is the sister of the longtime All-Star player Nelson Cruz, and Nelsie Cruz was the the provincial governor of Monte Cristi in the Dominican Republic. And very importantly, in the Associated Press story released about the tragedy, it was Nelsie Cruz, as a governor of one of the municipalities in the Dominican Republic, who was the first person to call and notify the president of the Dominican Republic, Luis Abinader, of what had happened. So she was able to place the phone call from the site of the tragedy before she had passed away. So she alerted the authorities even as she was gravely injured. Just an amazing example of service to her country and to her people. And Lauren, we talk so much, and I'm glad you shared that from Pedro last night. I watched that too, his beautiful tribute in Spanish to the viewers on TBS last night. The Dominican is a big baseball place, but it's also a small place. And it's a place where when you visit there, you really feel how important baseball is and how much everyone knows everyone there. And I was just exchanging texts last night with people who I know there and saying that one of my contacts said, hey, I know people who died. I know people who are still missing. And the number of injured, Lauren, is above 200 people. So this is just a massive tragedy, an incalculable tragedy for the island. And again, the president, Luis Abinader, has declared 3 days of mourning for the entire country. So flags are flown at half-mast. Certainly, the people of the Dominican are in our hearts here this morning.
And they certainly are. We're lifting them up. Unimaginable loss. JP Morosi, the baseball world in mourning as we remember a few of our own. Robert.